People often use the word sensitive as if it is something small, fragile, or even a flaw. But what it really means to be an empath is so much more than that. Sensitivity is not just about having strong feelings. It is about noticing things others might miss, about being attuned to what is happening beneath the surface. It is about the way an empath can feel the quiet sadness behind someone's smile, or sense the unease in a room before a single word is spoken. And this ability is both beautiful and heavy. It creates a life that feels deeply connected, but also deeply complex. Today, we are going to reflect on what it truly means to be an empath, not in the way the word is casually used, but in the real lived experience of those who know what it feels like to both love and struggle with this part of themselves. Chapter 1. The depth of emotional awareness. When we talk about emotional awareness, most people think of noticing when someone is sad, happy, frustrated, or calm. But for empaths, emotional awareness goes far beyond this surface understanding. It is not simply recognizing an emotion in another person. It is feeling it as though it has entered your own body. It is carrying the sorrow in your chest when you hear about someone's loss, or feeling your own pulse quicken when you sense anxiety in another. The line between your inner world and someone else's is not sharp. It is blurred, and that blurring can be both profound and overwhelming. This depth of awareness allows empaths to connect with others in a way that feels almost effortless. People often describe it as if empaths just get it without needing things explained. You can walk into a room and sense who is struggling, even when they're smiling. You can pick up on a small shift in tone that others miss, and for those around you, that can feel like a relief. It makes people feel seen, even without words. That ability to truly tune in creates bonds quickly, and it often makes empaths the people others lean on when they feel misunderstood. But this kind of emotional awareness comes with weight. When you feel everything so deeply, the emotions of others do not just pass through you and fade. They can linger. They can stay with you long after the moment has ended, coloring your own mood and shaping your thoughts. You might find yourself replaying someone else's story hours later, still carrying the sadness, the fear, or the pressure they felt. And it is not always obvious when this happens. Sometimes it feels as though your emotions suddenly shifted, when in reality, you're holding on to emotions that were never yours to begin with. This level of sensitivity can make joy more powerful too. The laughter of others can fill you with lightness, and being around someone's excitement can lift your entire day. But because the positive and the painful come in with the same intensity, the highs can be just as overwhelming as the lows. It means your emotional world is often amplified, and while that amplification makes you more aware, it also makes you more vulnerable to emotional exhaustion. Another challenge of this awareness is the isolation it can create. Empaths often feel like they're living in a world with the volume turned up, while others walk around with it turned low. You may find yourself wondering why people don't see what is so obvious to you. You might notice patterns in someone's behavior or emotions before they recognize it themselves. And when others dismiss what you feel or act as though it doesn't exist, it can make you question your own perception. The truth is, your perception isn't wrong. It's simply tuned in more deeply than most. This depth can also lead to a quiet kind of loneliness, because while your ability to understand others is extraordinary, not everyone understands you. People may appreciate your insight without realizing the cost of carrying it. They may lean on you without recognizing how heavy that leaning becomes. And for you, that can create a sense of being deeply connected yet simultaneously unseen. But within this emotional awareness lies a profound strength. It is what allows empaths to comfort others in ways that truly matter, because the comfort comes from a place of genuine resonance. It is what makes empaths valuable in spaces where listening, caring, and understanding are needed most. It is what makes you able to notice the small, subtle details that often hold the most meaning. At its best, this depth of emotional awareness is not just a gift, it is a bridge. It allows you to reach others where they are, not where they pretend to be. It helps you guide conversations into honesty and healing. And while it requires learning how to manage the weight, it also creates the possibility for relationships and connections that feel authentic and transformative. To be an empath is to live with this constant duality, the beauty of deep connection and the struggle of carrying too much. It is to feel life in sharper colors, sometimes too sharp to bear, but also too meaningful to trade away. Emotional awareness for an empath is not something you turn on or off. It is simply the way you move through the world, and while it requires care, it also creates a kind of depth that few people ever get to experience. Chapter 2. The sensitivity to environment. For most people, an environment is just a backdrop. A room is a room, a space is simply where something happens. But for empaths, environments are alive. They breathe with energy. They carry moods, histories, and subtle layers that most others pass by without noticing. An empath doesn't just walk into a place, they feel it. The air carries weight, the walls hold stories, and the energy of those who have been there seems to linger like a scent. This sensitivity shows up in ways that can be both striking and confusing. You might step into a crowded room and feel tension before anyone speaks. The air can feel thick, as though invisible cords of unease are pressing against you. Or you may enter a calm space, a quiet park, a softly lit room, and immediately feel your shoulders relax, as though the environment itself is giving you permission to breathe. What others notice, only with time or words, empaths register instantly. But this constant attunement is not something you can choose to shut off. Even when you want to, the environment speaks to you. A cluttered space can leave you restless without knowing why. Loud, chaotic places can leave you drained, as though you have given away energy without having done anything at all. Environments filled with conflict or unspoken tension can feel suffocating, making you want to leave even if you cannot explain the reason. This is why empaths often have strong preferences for where they spend time. You may find yourself drawn to spaces with soft lighting, natural surroundings, or open air. You might crave order, simplicity, or quiet, not because you're fragile, but because your body is constantly responding to what is around you. A peaceful environment does not just feel pleasant, it restores you. And a heavy one does not just irritate you, it depletes you. The sensitivity to environments also extends to subtler details. The tone of voices in a room, the arrangement of furniture, the way people interact with the space itself. An empath notices when something is slightly out of place, not because of perfectionism, but because the imbalance is felt. Harmony in an environment often creates harmony within. Disharmony often ripples through the body like static. This sensitivity can make empaths natural creators of soothing spaces. Many find themselves adjusting lighting, clearing clutter, or adding natural elements to restore balance. It is less about aesthetics and more about survival, to create or seek out environments that nourish rather than drain is a way of protecting emotional and physical well-being. And when others walk into those spaces, they often feel the difference without knowing why. Yet, there is a challenge hidden within this gift. Because environments influence you so strongly, it can sometimes feel as though your moods are not entirely your own. One day you may feel calm, centered, and steady, only to be thrown into restlessness or unease after stepping into a crowded or chaotic place. You may question yourself, wondering why your emotions seem to shift so suddenly. But the truth is, the environment is shaping your inner world more than most people ever experience. Over time, this can create a quiet exhaustion. Moving through spaces that are constantly loud, rushed, or tense can wear down the nervous system. It can make everyday routines feel heavier than they need to be. And when you cannot escape certain environments, the constant stimulation can leave you carrying emotions and fatigue that do not belong to you. But on the other side of this sensitivity lies extraordinary possibility. Because empaths are able to feel environments so deeply, they often know how to transform them. They understand that a peaceful space changes more than mood. It can shift the way people interact, the way conversations flow, the way stress melts away. Empaths notice the invisible and use that awareness to bring comfort, calm, and beauty to the spaces they touch. This awareness also deepens the connection to nature. Many empaths feel a profound sense of peace in natural surroundings. The rhythm of waves, the steadiness of trees, the quiet song of the wind. These environments are grounded in ways human-made ones often are not, because they move at a pace that harmonizes with the empath's sensitivity rather than colliding with it. In nature, empaths often feel their nervous system recalibrate, their emotions quiet, and their inner balance restored. The gift of sensitivity to environments is that it allows you to live with a richness most people miss. You're not simply walking through spaces. You're living with them, constantly in dialogue with the world around you. The challenge is learning how to protect your own energy within environments that overwhelm. The power comes from realizing that this sensitivity is not a weakness, but a tool. It can guide you to spaces that nourish, help you create havens of calm, and allow you to be more intentional about where you give your time and energy. Chapter 3. The tendency to carry more than their share. One of the quietest but heaviest struggles empaths face is the tendency to carry more than belongs to them. It is almost instinctive. When you see someone struggling, you don't just notice it, you feel it. Their frustration echoes in your chest. Their sadness tightens your throat. Their exhaustion seeps into your own body. And before you even realize it, you are carrying weight that is not yours. This tendency comes from a natural desire to help. When you feel another's burden so vividly, the impulse is to relieve it, to take it on if it means they can breathe easier. For many empaths, this doesn't feel like a choice, but a reflex. You lean in, absorb, and give. You become the buffer between discomfort and the other person. And while this instinct comes from compassion, it often leaves you with the invisible load. Carrying more than your share can show up in subtle ways. You might stay up at night, replaying conversations, worrying about whether someone is truly okay. You might find yourself stepping into roles of responsibility that no one asked you to take, simply because you sense the tension in the air and feel compelled to ease it. You might even rearrange your own needs and plans because the weight of another's emotions feels too loud to ignore. The challenge is that this constant carrying builds up. Every unspoken worry, every moment of tension, every invisible piece of responsibility adds to the weight on your shoulders. Over time, it becomes difficult to tell what belongs to you and what you have picked up from others. Your own feelings can blur with theirs, leaving you unsure where your emotions end and someone else's begin. This can lead to a subtle kind of exhaustion that empaths know all too well. It is not just the tiredness of a long day. It is the heaviness of carrying countless unspoken worries, silent struggles, and unacknowledged responsibilities. And because you rarely announce this load to others, it remains invisible. People may not even realize how much you're holding for them. They see the calm surface, but not the storm underneath. There is another layer to this habit. When you carry more than your share, you sometimes shield others from the consequences of their own struggles. While your intentions are kind, this can create imbalance. You may find yourself giving endlessly, while others grow accustomed to leaning on you without realizing how much it costs. Over time, this can make you feel unseen, unappreciated, or even invisible, because the quiet labor of carrying weight is often overlooked. Yet, despite the exhaustion, it can be difficult for empaths to stop. There is a sense of guilt that rises when you step back, as if by not carrying someone else's pain, you're letting them down. This guilt is one of the greatest traps for empaths. It convinces you that saying no is selfish, that protecting your own well-being is wrong. And so many keep taking on more, hoping it will make things better, only to find themselves depleted. But here's the truth. Carrying everything does not heal anyone. It only leaves you drained and unable to show up fully. True compassion does not mean absorbing another's entire burden. It means standing beside them, offering support, but allowing them to carry what is theirs. It means trusting that people are capable of walking their own paths, even if they stumble along the way. Learning to release what is not yours is one of the hardest lessons for empaths. It requires pausing when you feel the impulse to rush in. It requires asking yourself, is this truly mine to carry? It requires allowing discomfort in others without rushing to fix it, and allowing yourself to remain steady without drowning in emotions that do not belong to you. Over time, you may begin to notice the freedom that comes from setting this boundary. When you stop carrying what is not yours, you begin to feel lighter. You begin to reclaim energy that had been leaking away for years. And in doing so, you also begin to see your own needs more clearly. Chapter 4. The inner conflict between self and others. One of the most profound struggles empaths face is the constant tug-of-war between honoring their own needs and responding to the needs of others. This inner conflict is not always loud or dramatic. Often it is quiet, subtle, and ongoing, a hum in the background of daily life that shapes how you think, how you act, and even how you see yourself. At the heart of this conflict is a simple but painful truth. Empaths feel deeply drawn to care for others, but that very instinct can lead them to neglect themselves. It is not that you want to abandon your own needs. It is that when you sense the tension, sadness, or discomfort in someone else, it feels louder than your own inner voice. Their needs rise to the surface, and yours slip quietly into the background. Over time, this pattern creates a deep divide inside. You may find yourself saying yes when your body is quietly begging you to say no. You may give your time, energy, or attention, even when you're running on empty. And afterward, though no one may see it, you feel drained, sometimes even resentful, not because you do not care, but because you have once again silenced your own needs to keep the peace or ease the discomfort of others. This is where the inner conflict becomes so heavy. On one hand, you long to show up with compassion, to be the person who eases others' struggles. On the other hand, you quietly crave the space to honor yourself, to rest, to breathe, to live in a way that reflects your own wants and values. It can feel like living in two worlds at once, never fully comfortable in either, always questioning whether you're doing enough or whether you're losing yourself. The challenge is compounded by the guilt that so often follows. When you put yourself first, even in small ways, it can feel selfish. The voice of guilt whispers that you are abandoning others, that you're letting someone down. And yet, when you ignore your own needs, another voice rises, one that feels weary, unseen, or even frustrated that you cannot seem to hold space for yourself the way you hold it for everyone else. The conflict becomes a cycle. Guilt on one side, exhaustion on the other, and it can leave you feeling trapped. This inner struggle also affects how you see your own identity. Empaths often build a sense of self around being the helper, the listener, the one who cares. While these are beautiful qualities, they can also become a kind of cage. If you begin to believe that your worth is only in how much you can give, then the idea of pulling back or focusing on yourself feels like erasing a part of who you are. This belief keeps you in the loop, giving and giving, even when it costs you more than you can afford. And yet, beneath this struggle lies a deeper truth. The conflict between self and others is not a flaw. It is a signal, a reminder that your empathy is powerful, but it needs balance. Your inner self is asking for recognition, not abandonment. It is reminding you that you cannot keep pouring from an empty vessel. Caring for yourself does not diminish your empathy. In fact, it strengthens it. Learning to navigate this conflict begins with awareness. It begins with noticing when you are about to silence your needs and asking yourself why. Are you saying yes out of genuine willingness or out of guilt? Are you giving because you truly want to, or because you fear what will happen if you do not? These small moments of awareness open the door to change. Then comes the practice of boundary setting, which for empaths often feels uncomfortable at first. Saying no feels unnatural. Choosing yourself feels strange. But slowly, you begin to see that when you protect your own energy, you are not closing yourself off from others. You are preserving the very compassion and presence that make your care so meaningful. You are ensuring that when you do give, it comes from a place of fullness rather than depletion. And perhaps the most healing realization of all is this: honoring yourself does not mean abandoning others. You can care deeply and still hold space for your own needs. You can show compassion without sacrificing your well-being. You can love others without losing yourself in the process. In fact, when you find this balance, the quality of your empathy changes. It becomes stronger, steadier, and more sustainable, because it is not fueled by self-neglect, but by self-respect. The inner conflict between self and others may never disappear entirely. It is woven into the experience of being an empath. But with time, awareness, and compassion for yourself, it can shift from a battle into a dialogue. Instead of silencing one side to honor the other, you learn to listen to both. You learn to care for others while also caring for yourself. You learn to hold both truths at once, that your empathy is a gift to others, and that it is also a gift you must extend to yourself. And in this balance, you find freedom. You are no longer defined solely by how much you can carry for others. You begin to define yourself by how authentically you can live, how deeply you can feel, and how wisely you can choose when to give and when to rest. The conflict softens into clarity, and from that clarity, you begin to live not as a divided self, but as a whole one.